Hello, this is Carrie Fell. Welcome to my studio. So today I'm doing a dyeing experiment. I have written down on individual slips of paper all the colors that I own in acid dyes. And I have written down a light and a dark version of each one. I also have a few powders that are mixed with citric acid, and those are in there, as well as the numbers 1 to 10. The numbers 1 to 10 are these odd mixes that I'm not sure what they are. They're leftovers from other dye projects. If I just have a little bit left in a bottle, I'll combine them to create at least half a bottle's worth. So those ones back there, I know what they are, and there's enough of each one to use if I happen to draw those ones. These ones are mysteries. I already did the drawing of the tags. I drew 4. So I have a dark Wedgwood blue, a dark twilight, a light brilliant blue, and then I drew number 7, which is, it looks like a kind of an orange that I previously made. And it was sitting right here. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have the numbers to 10 because sometimes I have up to 10 here. So that's how I picked that. So these are colors I wouldn't probably not use together. 3 different blues and an orange. They're complementary colors, which doesn't mean complementary as in look good. It means as in opposites. So if you mix them together, they turn into mud. So I've just spent the last little while trying to decide how to combine them, and I have an idea. So my idea is to do this in stages. I have a pot on the stove which I'm filling with water, and the first thing I'm going to do is use the orange, and I'm going to dip dye my skein of yarn into an orange dye bath, and it is going to be dip dyed in a way that one end is got more of the dye than the other. The warp I'm going to use is Knit Picks Shadow, and it is a lace weight, 100% wool, not superwash. And I have taken a skein of this, wound it into a cake, and then I wound a 3-yard warp. So what I like about drawing colors out of a hat and playing the dyeing game is it is making me make thoughtful choices about how I apply the dye to the yarn. Today it's dip dyeing, and this of course is just stage 1 because I have the 3 other colors that I need to apply. Okay, the dye pot's just starting to sizzle. I have my wool warp here. Basically we're going to dip it, dunk it, and see what happens. gradation from one end of the warp to the other. So I'm going to let this simmer for 20 minutes or so, and then I have to apply the other 3 colors. So I've removed the yarn from the pot, and we have a nice gradation from light to dark with the yellow. And now we're going to dip dye it from the other end. I think we'll just do 1 teaspoon. Let's see. Yep. And then once it's just starting to boil, we're going to dye this warp from the other end. So we're going to move this tie. So we'll dip the light end into this blue, dip dyeing the same way we did this one. I'll let this steam for a bit. We've got a nice gradation now from yellow to blue. It needs that heat for an extended period of time in order for the color to set. Then there's still 2 more colors to add to this. So I've made a decision. I have 2 more colors to go, and I just can't bring myself to add them. I just can't. I thought about sprinkling them on there, but I just love this smooth gradient, and I just can't bring myself to put anything else on there. So I'm going to let this cool and dry and take a look at the yarn, and I have a feeling I'm going to be leaving it like this. I just love this gradual gradient, and I'm sure it'll weave up beautifully. So I just took this out of the dye pot. It's in the pan here, dish pan, waiting to be washed. So yeah, it goes from a turquoise through to the bright yellow in a nice gradual gradation. It's lovely. Yeah. So I will now wash this and hang it to dry. This warp turned out beautifully. I dip dyed first the yellow and I got heavier on this end and then lighter down to this end till there was hardly any yellow in the dye bath right here. After it had cooled, I created a new dye bath with a blue, and I dip dyed it from the other end with hardly any blue here to the most blue here. And I have this amazing gradual color change from one end to the other. It's all dry, so I'm going to re-chain it now. So I'm going to videotape this part in a different room. Lighting is a little different in here. Makes a bit of a change, but it still looks a little washed out. The colors are definitely deeper. So this is chained up in the warp. The neat part is that one end is blue, the other end is yellow, but it makes the full transition twice down the length of it. So this is the Knit Picks Shadow, which is a lace yarn, and I'm going to put this on my rigid heddle with a 15 dent reed and use some maybe some patterns with a pickup stick or something to create some interest along the length. So even though I only use 2 colors, we have a full range of blue and all the greens in between to get to yellow, which is really cool. And I'm glad I just stopped there. I think it will make a beautiful scarf. So here's my first project with the Knit Picks Shadow. And I wanted a coordinating weft. So I took another skein of the Knit Picks and I dyed it up in with turquoise. It's looking very blue on the camera, but it's definitely a turquoise. And I'm using this as the weft in my shuttle here. And I'm doing a little weave with a pickup stick. So it is giving me these little blips as a pattern in here. So the length, the color changes down the length of the warp. So we will see it moving between the turquoise and the yellow. It'll be a little more subtle because the entire weft is turquoise, but anyways, I'm enjoying this. It's a finer weaving than I usually do on the rigid heddle loom, so this will take a while, but I can't wait to see what it looks like when it comes off and is wet finished. So here's the finished scarf. I used a pickup technique so that we have a subtle little pattern here. So it's not completely plain weave. And what we've got is a scarf that goes from yellow to blue, through the greens, back to yellow, and then back down to blue again. So there's a subtle, smooth transition, which I just love. The scarf is soft, drapes beautifully. It's merino wool, and yes, it's a lovely yarn. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. This scarf and others are available on my website. Check it out.